Welcome to Good Life. Great program today. Dr. Smaranda Lawrie is with me. She is a researcher at UCSB and an adjunct faculty at Westmont College. She is an amazing person. You're really going to love this interview. Dr. Lawrie, next on The Good Life. Welcome to Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. So glad you've joined us. You can always find us, by the way, at goodlifetelevision.org. You can find all the episodes, all the full form interviews, along with a lot of what we call power clips, where you can see some of the great moments of those interviews. A lot of great people. I think about 93 so far interviews in all walks of life, and it's really interesting. So goodlifetelevision.org is where you go. We are also on all the social media platforms. We'd love to have you follow us and join us and on this ride we're on to inspire and to offer hope, to empower, to encourage, to honor. It's an exciting journey. I'm really excited about my guest today, Dr. Smaranda Lawrie. Did I get that right?
That's right.
Okay, got it right. Dr. Lawrie is a researcher at University of California, Santa Barbara, as well as adjunct faculty at Westmont College, my alma mater. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Great to
it's
have
so
you.
wonderful to be here.
Yeah, so I want to get into what you've been doing, which is really interesting. But just tell us a little bit about growing up, where you grew up and your family and where you came from.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Romania. It's a pretty long, interesting story in itself, but we left during communism. So it was one of those middle of the night, risk of lifetime imprisonment or death sort of situation. We made it to Hungary, so we managed to get a visa to Hungary. So you were allowed to visit the other communist countries. We ended up hiding out there for several months in somebody's house. There was kind of like an underground railroad type situation. Then we eventually made it to Austria, where we spent about 3 years in political refugee camps before coming here to the United States. So that was sort of where I got my start.
Wow.
I grew up mostly in Connecticut and went to college 20 minutes down the road, and then came here for grad school. There was a few other stops along the way.
Wow.
But, yeah.
That's way more interesting than my story. Wow, I didn't know that part of your journey. So you went to Hungary, you were hiding out for months, then you went to Austria, and then from there you came to Connecticut?
Yeah, so once we were in Austria, like I said, we were living in refugee camps, and there was a lottery system for who got to leave. Okay. And my mom's a French teacher, so she wanted to go to France, and my dad wanted to come to America. And they had a deal where, whoever took us first, we would go there. So I almost ended up in France, but I ended up here, which I'm very thankful for.
Wow.
But yeah, and I this is a little bit off topic, but I'm just so thankful to be here, and I'm so thankful that my former student at Westmont, Brenda, thought of me for this. Yeah. It just, you're asking me about what it was like, my childhood and being an immigrant, and it was really tough in Austria. They were very openly racist at the time. Towards people from Eastern Europe. So it was things like I had to take a separate bus to school, and I wasn't allowed to participate in gym class because they didn't want me wearing shorts, and somehow my immigrantness was contagious or something. One time my first grade teacher, I had to sit at the back of the class, and one time I dropped food on the ground and she made me lick it off the ground. She said, and gave a speech to the class about how immigrants are like dogs and they should be treated as such. So that was sort of my start to school. And then a few years later, once I was here in the United States, I had this really incredible teacher who changed my life in so many ways. And I get goosebumps just thinking about her. But, she was somebody who really saw more in me than I could see in myself at that time. And I think teachers have such an important role in children's lives and in our society in general. And I think, she's part of the reason why I love teaching so much. So the fact that one of my students thought that I was interesting and worthy enough to come to this it feels really darn good. So I'm super thankful for that, and for her inviting me.
What is the name of the teacher?
Miss Cuthbert. She passed away a few years ago, but somebody you think about all the time.
Isn't that amazing? I
Yeah.
mean, that I had somebody else here who actually came. His mother was a Holocaust survivor, and he came out of really rough. And he talked. He said almost the same thing that you did. He was talking about a nun who kind of pulled him by the collar and said, "Jimmy," and she spoke into his life in a way that he never forgot.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's just amazing to me how the power of words, number one, and the power of somebody believing in you, seeing something in you that you don't even necessarily see in yourself,
Yeah.
what that can do.
I know, one person, right,
Yeah.
can change the course of your life. It's incredible to think about.
That's incredible. So I wasn't planning on going down this road, but since we're here, what do you think about America? I mean, how has it been for you coming from where you came from? What has the experience been like?
It has been honestly incredible. I mean, I brought up one teacher, but there's been so many people along the way, neighbors and counselors and other teachers, and so many people that were just so open and welcoming and kind and, treated our story as something interesting and cool. And I think, the past few years have been a little bit different. And I think the story of how we talk about immigrants and immigration has changed a little bit. And that's been really hard and painful for me because this country has been really wonderful to us. I mean, I don't think I could have made it to where I am today in any other place. I don't think there would have been as many opportunities and helpful hands and open doors. So, I can't say enough good things about all the people along the way that really just gave us so much help and so much kindness. So it's been hard, it's been hard to see a little bit of the change in the past few years and how we talk about immigrants and their role in this country, because immigrants are pretty darn wonderful. They're tough. Yeah.
And the when you end up with, one of the things I like about our country is when you end up with that melting pot, that it's enriching, not the opposite.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, just thinking to my family and my parents, but anybody who I've met who's gone through the immigration process, they are really strong people, and I think one thing we forget too is that oftentimes they're not doing this for themselves. They're usually doing it for family members, for children. They want a better life. And I mean, when my parents left Romania, they could have been in prison for life. They left everything behind. They didn't know if they'd ever see their friends again, if they'd ever see their parents again. And they did that for me, so I could have a future, so I could have a better life. Wow. That's tremendous strength. That's incredible. And I think we need to just celebrate that. The people that are doing this are really strong, pretty cool individuals.
Resilient.
Yes, to use the word resilient.
And now you're Dr. Lawrie.
And now Dr. Lawrie.
Yeah. There is a risk-taking element, I guess, to that whole situation. I mean, I had another friend who fled Venezuela in the middle of the night. They just left their house, just waved goodbye, just got out on, I think it was New Year's Eve or something, through the trees, and on they went. But we don't, I mean, I can't relate to that because of my life story, but it's powerful to hear about it. Are you going to write this down at some point?
I'm trying. I'm trying. I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
I'd buy that book.
Thank you.
Yeah. So as we're taping this, we're in the middle of a pandemic. You probably know about this.
If I've heard about it.
Yeah.
If you haven't heard,
we are in the middle of a pandemic. Everybody's masked around us. We're spaced here. And you're in the college setting. So I wanted to start by asking you kind of how your students are doing. And then I want to get into some of the really valuable and important work that you're doing. But kind of talk about college students in the pandemic.
Yeah, so I've been blown away by them. It is such a difficult situation for everyone. And I think especially being in college and having all these college is such an incredible time, right? Anybody who gets to be in college is so blessed and so lucky. And I think just kind of, it's really crummy to get that taken away from you, and that really cool experience. And there's definitely some burnout. It's 6-7 hours on Zoom a day is hard for me, it's hard for them. The loss of social connection and even like physical touch, getting to hug your friends and see them in person. But I've been blown away. I mean, I think there's a lot of struggle, but I think through that struggle, I've just been seeing so much strength as well. Students inspire me in so many ways and keep me going. I think, speaking more directly to the Resilience Summit, I was teaching last spring when all this started to go down. I was teaching positive psychology at Westmont, where I met Brenda. And at the same time, I was teaching a research methods class at UCSB. So very different. This was, students carrying out their own experiments and writing papers. And the feedback from the students at Westmont was really positive, where they were saying, this is such a good class to be taking at this time, and they're getting these skills and these toolkits that they can apply during this really difficult time. So one of the things I started doing is just incorporating some of the simple things we were doing in positive psychology into my research methods class. So, going back to Brenda again, one of the things we do in positive psychology and in all my classes is start off just taking a few minutes, going around the room and sharing 3 good things that happened in the past 24 hours. And sometimes it's really good things, sometimes it's big things like somebody's niece was born, or, really wonderful things. And sometimes it's just my roommate made me oatmeal this morning, or he cleaned the kitchen sink, or, but I think just in these really difficult times, taking that time out of your day to think about the good things, because they're there, and also sharing them with each other creates just a really different learning environment, a really different culture. But we were doing things like that in research methods, and I had a couple students that were like, gosh, I wish we had a positive psychology class at UCSB. I wish I could learn more about these things. There was a lot of tears and a lot of emotions, because it is, there's a lot going on. And I think also the political unrest, the racial issues, students care, they care deeply, and they want to figure out how to make a difference and how to be involved, and that brings up a lot of emotions. So this whole thing just really started with a couple of small conversations. Students like, can we learn more about this? And trying to figure out a way to make that possible.
Wow.
So it started really tiny.
Yeah, and then now you're doing these seminars, and there's a summit and certification program. If you had to just define positive psychology, what define that, or talk a little bit about just kind of what that is?
Yeah, so that's a really great question, because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. I think, it's gotten popular in the social media and the popular media. So I think traditional psychology, business as usual psychology, if you call it, has always been focused on the many, many different things that can go wrong with us. It's based on a disease model, a disease medical model. And I think that's been really important. As a field, we've made really great strides in curing some of these diseases, or at least making life better for people. And I think it's important to continue to do that. Positive psychology, however, also focuses on what can go right with people. What are the things that people have as strengths, and so we focus on things like hope and resilience and courage and meaning, and all these things that are also the flip side of the coin. Right. So I think the easiest way to think about it is that traditional psychology is focused on, how do we take somebody from like a -8 to a -2, or from a -5 to a 0? And positive psychology is focused on how do we take somebody from a 0 to a 5, or from a 5 to a 10. Right. But I think as it started there, I think one of the really cool things that we're seeing in recent years is that it also provides really good tools and really good lessons for people who are struggling or going through difficult times, because at some point we all have struggles. We all go through difficult times. So, where it started looking at those good things, it's sort of how do we promote those things even during difficult times, even during times of struggle.
Yeah. I've read a little bit about gratitude. Maybe that's an example of...
Yes, the 3 good things, 3 blessings exercise.
Yeah.
Incredible.
It changes your outlook.
It changes you.
Yeah. Sometimes in really tough times, we've done that exercise with our kids. You know, let's write down all the positive, good things that we can think of.
Well, I hope Hannah's still doing it, because I was doing it
Hannah,
with her in class. So.
Yeah, no, we and it would be pages. I mean, because if you start thinking, it's a different way of thinking.
It is.
I mean, perspective, I guess, maybe is the word, where all of a sudden I'm looking around and I'm not just in my own head thinking about my own problems. I mean, I'm not trying to teach you anything, believe me. I'm just
but you're totally
throwing
right.
stuff
That's
out.
Completely right. Yeah. It is. It's that getting out of your head and kind of stepping back and being able to see what's going on in your head, but also being able to step away from it, decenter from it.
Yes.
Yeah. I do it with my kids every day.
Do you really?
Yeah. And it's
4 and 8 years old.
4 and 8 years old.
Are they boys or girls?
I have the 8-year-old son and the 4-year-old girl.
Okay.
And it's gotten to the point where if we forget to do it one night, they bring it up.
Really?
You know, they really enjoy it. And usually it's little things, you know. They're 4 and 8, but
what a gift.
It's so amazing.
Yeah.
And honestly, you know, I had this really weird experience. I was doing an interview for public radio a couple days ago, and Samantha Blodgett, the undergrad who's been helping with the Resilience Project, you know, introduced me as one of the most upbeat and positive people she's ever met. And I was like, it just, you know, I'm from Romania. The stereotypes are true. Like, Eastern Europe is a lot about complaining and, you know, we like to be negative. And I realized that teaching positive psychology and incorporating more of these practices into my own life, she was right. Like, it changed me. I am more optimistic. I am more just hopeful and grateful and open. And so, but it was a weird, like, holy moly.
Yeah, well, that's good. It's worked for you.
It's working.
Yeah, that's good. I feel like resilience as a concept, or is it whatever that is, resilience as a thing is more important than ever in today's world. Talk a little bit about resilience and what your hope would be for your students, for the people that you're influencing.
Yeah. So it's interesting because we've had so many experts talk to us about resilience over these past few months, and everybody has a slightly different definition, different kind of take on what resilience is. The way that I've been thinking about it recently, and especially in the current times we're living in, is teaching people, myself included, how to suffer better. You know, because I think, you know, a lot of people think about positive psychology as all about smiles and happiness and, you know, and it's not that. Sometimes global pandemics happen. Right. Bad things happen in all of our lives at one point or another, right? So I think it's also about being able to get through those times with more strength, being able to bounce back from those times. But yeah, suffering better, I think it really resonates with me right now.
We need a hashtag,
suffering better.
There's a scripture, I think, about suffering with hope. But I think that's an amazing thought. Suffering better.
Yeah.
Because suffering, I mean, wouldn't you say, suffering can kind of put you down two different paths. I mean, is that oversimplifying it?
No, I totally agree. I just saw this cartoon recently from another psychologist, Adam Grant, and it was just a really simple cartoon, but he had it was sort of, you know, the successful person and the non-successful person. And the non-successful person had a bunch of different blocks of failure, and it was like these blocks were building on top of his head and on top of his shoulders, kind of weighing him down. And then the successful person cartoon was the same set of blocks of failure, but with every failure climbing up the ladder a little bit more. So I think, you know, and I think honestly, that's something that, I don't know if it's the immigrant mentality, but I think that's something that I got from my parents, that they did really well. You know, so it wasn't, I loved my childhood. You know, I started off telling you about having to lick food off the ground and all these terrible things, but I had a really good childhood, and I think my parents did that. You know, they let me sort of, like, yes, this is happening, you know, you're going through these difficult things, it's hard, but hey, you're still here, you're still in school, you're still getting good grades, pat yourself on the back. And these experiences are just making you stronger. You know, all these other kids don't have these experiences, and you're still here and you're still moving forward. Pat yourself on the back. And I think that's something I hope to do with my students, is to make them realize that, like, life is tough.
Yeah.
We all have things, every single one of us, more or less. Even, the picture perfect life on Facebook, it's not real. We're all struggling with stuff inside and outside, and to be able to take those failures, to take those struggles and figure out how they can grow from them,
Yes.
become stronger and more resilient from them, as opposed to let them kind of weigh them down.
And maybe not be surprised by suffering. I think that's an important thing. To what you said earlier, like
Everybody does.
experiencing suffering, but I think at some level, like we had a brain injured child our second, and I think I was surprised. Like at first I was kind of like, whoa, this is not supposed to happen to me. I've got a plan. I've got the next 20 years, and like all of a sudden the plan's out the window. It's kind of like the quote, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. But I think for my kids, let me ask you this. I had somebody ask me the other day, do you want your kids to be safe or strong?
Strong.
Yes.
Strong.
But we want to bubble wrap them.
I know.
Out of love. What's the balance there, I guess, in your parenting right now?
I'm parenting right now. It's really hard.
Yeah.
I am by no means a
Speaking of
parenting.
suffering.
Yeah, I am by no means a parenting expert. I will say that, this is something I've been thinking about so much. Because I am a parent, because I am a teacher. My most recent research that I'm doing is exactly looking at this. So I'm looking at cross-cultural differences in parenting. So we have data from East Asia, we have data from the Nordic countries, and we have data from the United States. And one of the reasons I'm so interested in these, kind of looking at these different cultures, is because if you look at these international tests, PISA or so forth, we see that East Asian countries do really well academically. They're kicking our butt across the board. But the kids aren't very happy. They're really struggling with their mental and psychological health. When you look at American kids, they're sort of in the middle academically and psychologically right now. And you look at some of these Nordic countries and they're doing something different, because those kids are doing better academically, but they also seem to be doing much better in terms of their psychological and mental health. And I spent some time in Denmark last summer, and one of the things that I noticed there is that parents are much more hands-off. They do less of this protecting that you talk about. I think, you see kids riding their bikes to school or playing at the park on their own, and I think as parents, we try to be the best parents that we could be, but we almost do too much here. We make our jobs too hard.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's the best things. It's very different than I'm sure your childhood was, or than my childhood was,
We drank out of the hose.
Yeah, and disappeared in the morning, and you hear all this anecdotal.
Come back when the
sun,
street lights go on, if they do.
Yeah.
It was pretty much different.
And I think, and I do it too. We try to protect our kids from everything, and I don't know if that's the best thing. I think letting them fail, I think letting them make mistakes early on teaches them for later life, because they will make mistakes. They will get punched in the face, like you said.
Yeah.
So the way I think of failures during childhood is almost like vaccinations, right? Like you're getting little vaccines, little doses of failure along the way.
Yeah.
Make you stronger for when you're an adult and you find out that your child is brain injured, right? And you have to deal with these big problems.
Right.
So I think strong, but I think strong comes from mistakes, from failures, from falling down and getting back up.
Yes.
So
that's another scripture. Fall down 7 times, get up 8. I think, you have to fall down, and to find out what you're made of as a person.
Yeah.
How do you do that without failure?
And I think too, with kids today, it's not just that we overprotect them, we also expect a lot from them. We expect them to be perfect. Childhood has gotten harder. We start school so much earlier, like kindergarten, first grade, people are already talking about college, and then these college students too, it's like you have to get the grades, you have to do the service work, you have to be an athlete, there's so much on their shoulder. We expect perfection from them. So it's no wonder that that's stressful. that's going to make anybody anxious. Perfection is not possible and it's not fair. And we weren't perfect. We're not perfect.
You can ask Hannah what I would say when they'd come to me with a math grade. Like, I remember the first couple times, like, and I think Grace did the same thing. She'd come in and she'd be like, I could tell she was about to tell me something. And my quote is always the same: math sucks. I hate math. Who cares? And they're like, yes. Yeah, I'm against math. But, you know, I think that's a great point. I mean, I think it's a great point. We, you know, expect, and especially this social media culture where the comparisons, you know,
So hard.
their best picture,
So hard.
you know, with a gentle breeze and everything, you know, but it's not real.
It's not
you
real.
know, but that's what the kids are coming up in.
I mean, there's so many times I was at the beach this summer this weekend, because it's February in
like
Santa
summer.
Barbara, yeah. And there was these young girls really close to us, and I mean, the entire time we were there, they were trying to take the perfect picture. That's gotta be exhausting for them too, you know, to always put on your most perfect self. It's tough to be young right now.
I don't want to go back.
It's tough.
Yeah.
I don't want to, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Here we are.
here we are.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So Dr. Lawrie is going to Providence College in Rhode Island in the fall of this year that we're taping this in, 2021. So congrats.
Thank you.
We'll miss you around here.
I will so miss
But
it here.
yeah, but that's wonderful and great work.
Thank you.
Appreciate what you've done
Thank
and
you so much.
what you're doing. It's great to meet you.
Thank you.
right.
So wonderful to be here. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
You bet. You bet. We'll see you next time.